Geology.com/ham. Did we finish that? Geology.com/ham, 40% off your trial sets.
Let's do it.
Okay, mailbag question. This one on iTunes, and it comes from KSU22KCKC East. So I'm guessing
Jeez, this guy write a book?
I think this is what it is, John. This is Kansas State University, class of 22, KCKC Chiefs East. That's what my guess. Because here we go. Pod is awesome. My biggest complaint is that there isn't any podcast that holds a candle to this one that talks about my team, Chiefs, since birth. Generally, I think you guys have awesome opinions, but I have to say I listened to the Julio episode, and I think it's a little arrogant to think the Niners shouldn't seriously consider him. Put it this way. You either have to take the mindset that they are not all in on a Super Bowl this year and wait to see how the trade pick plays out before a free agent acquisition like this, or it's time to get a championship. If it's win now mode, then it's a no-brainer if you can get them for $20 million a year for 2 or 3 years, and then you have a window where they can roll out the elite defense. So why not add a guy guaranteed to make an already good offense suite? I know full and well that Kansas City will have to pay the piper eventually, but I love and respect that they acknowledge the Super Bowl window is now, so let's push the money back and get ballers. Think other teams should take a page out of this book. You know what? KSU 22, KC East, we are going to reconsider, not just because of that note, but also because of what our buddy who covers the Niners, Chris Peterman, tweeted, John. I had the contracts wrong. Julio Jones' salary per over the cap. This is what it would be if you traded for him. $15 million this year, $11.5 in 22. In 2023, 11.5. He writes, I think the money's pretty palatable if you're in the market. Question becomes trade comps. Will there be a bidding war? I'd guess a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick is about what it would take. But in other words, the base salary is what you take on, and not a lot of guarantees beyond this year on Julio's contract. So you know what? KSU 22, KC East, we will reconsider and open it back up here on this Julio conversation, given the money situation.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Michael Lombardi say it was 26. It's basically a 2-year, $26 million deal if you wanted to acquire him. And then you asked me, did you realize that? And I think part of it is the hard part with the NFL. There's like this post June 1 numbers change. I think that's factoring that in. But you're also acquiring a guy like you can't. I'd have no problem taking $26 million in Julio Jones, but you got to factor in what you have to give up for him. I had a DM the other day from a Colts fan, and he's like, I don't understand Ballard's rhyme or reason to anything. He's like, last year they traded a first-round pick for DeForest Buckner. This year they didn't do anything with it, and they just drafted Kwity Paye, right? It's like, why didn't he use that pick to get another guy? Or like, what's the point of all this? So I said, well, one, DeForest Buckner, it's a no-brainer. You're just getting an all-pro, Pro Bowl level player on Ballard's side who fits their culture. There's not always available players, right? Like Stephon Diggs, Jalen Rams, like who's he supposed to trade for? You also have to factor in where your team is at financially. And while they do have a cheap quarterback eventually, whether it's this year, but ultimately it won't factor in this year because they're still paying Jimmy, right? Their quarterback room is not cheap right now, right? Because I bet Trey Lance is the 3rd overall pick. So this year he's making $6-7 million. Jimmy, like their quarterback room is not, $5 million total or something. Yeah. And you also have to factor in who's on your team, who needs to get paid. Ideally a 2nd-round pick for a team that doesn't have many picks. Like that has been Deebo Samuel. It's gotten them good players before, right? They got, Brandon Ayuk at the end of the 1st round, but because they were kind of in that realm that you got to factor in money. So to me, Julio is not coming for free. When I say coming for free, they don't give a shit. Like the Niners have an unlimited amount of like bonus money because Jed has cash. They don't have a problem spending money. Now you got to factor it within the cap, but you do have to factor in, is it worth to make a short-term risk when that 2nd-round pick, like we'll buy guys in free agency, right? But we only have so many picks, and that 2nd-round pick, even if we're good this year, is still pretty powerful. And so if people are willing to offer a 2nd-round pick, is that more valuable to us because we don't have 1st-round picks coming for a while? Look at the Texans, are a good example of a team that like the last couple of years they haven't had any picks. Or this was like the first time that the Rams had a 2nd-round pick, and they're like, oh my God, it was awesome. Like it's tough. Your margin for error is slim to none. So I'm not opposed. Like Julio Jones is everything you'd want in a player, right? Elite talent, elite football character, elite production. Like he has it all. But you do have to, like, there is a bidding process. right? There are going to be, he's on the market. There are several teams interested. It's like the fucking housing market. Part of the reason the housing market's skyrocketing, because there are a lot of people that want a limited amount of homes. So if Julio Jones was somewhat of an outlier and like only one team was interested because he made a ton of money, you probably get him for a fourth if they just want to unload the money. That's not the case here. Like I think, wouldn't you be shocked if he doesn't go for a second-round pick?
I would be, yeah. Because remember, when we go back, here's where I will repeat how I ranked my list of concerns for Julio Jones. My number one concern was the cost of the trade. I said that before, and I still maintain that. My number two concern was his salary, which is obviously a much smaller concern, although there is a concern there worth getting back to. Third concern is production and health. It's concerning health. My question on his production, I still think he'll be a really good player. I don't think he's washed up or anything like that. But the question, let's go back to salary, John. I know what he is scheduled to make right now, right? We know this now accurately. $15 million, $11 million next year. Great. What are you thinking? You get Julio, he plays well this year, and then you pay him $11 million next year? Fantastic. What's Julio thinking? No way in hell am I showing up for $11 million. So I still think there is some salary concern here, just not the one we thought. Instead of being the money that is owed, now the salary concern is the money that he'll want. Is Julio going to say, wherever I go, I'm going to need a new contract? He might, because if I were him, I would.
Well, if it goes well, let's say the Niners traded for him, and he had a good season, and they were really good. There's zero chance on God's green earth he would show up for $11 million. He's proven that before. Like a couple years ago, he made a stink, and he's right. Like, I don't play for cheap. Like, there's no like, oh, you got me on this discount because I'm boys with Kyle. That's not the way the world works. And you're right. I mean, that's part that has to factor in, right? It just does.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not against having Julio Jones on my team because right now is the most important time. Is it that to me, the separate conversation, is it worth having Julio then for 2 years, 33, 34 at $21, $22 million a year? When we can, basically just take Julio for Jimmy, or are we better off signing a couple younger guys, and having more quote unquote depth because we have some young wide receivers at other positions? Like that to me is what the conversation is, because you're right. Right now it's a no brainer, right? If he helps you take him on your team immediately. Next year though, if he wants, if he was a free agent, would you give him 2 years and $45 million?
No.
It's hard because he's his age. That's just not smart business. Even though you could also just take the Rams mindset, who gives a fuck? Put all your chips in the middle of the table every year. See where the chips fall. Like no one will complain. No one will have any issue.
So do you think they're a Super Bowl contending team right now, right? You and I do not believe that. Now, we think
you give Julio
they
Jones,
they'd
be pretty dynamic.
So to get back to the question, I think it's fair. Like, don't be so arrogant as to think you don't need him. I do think there's something fair about, hey guys, you're saying, because this is what I've been saying, right? Here's what's important on this team: that Kittle is healthy, that Debo is healthy, that Ayuk is healthy. But we are talking about guys that have missed games. Ayuk, not all health, but actually the beginning of last year it was health related. So you could say, okay, yeah, you want those guys to be healthy and you're banking on it because they're your best players when it comes to your offense. Fair. But they drafted Trey Lance for a variety of reasons. One of them is because they stopped waiting for Jimmy Garoppolo to be healthy and just decided we got to do something because this guy consistently is not healthy. So back to the question, the mailbag question's point on, are you being arrogant? You could argue that, yeah, it is a little arrogant to go, no, I'm going with the studs and ignore the fact that availability is a concern for them and not prepare for a lack of availability. If they miss 10 games, then you got a problem. But just you could bank on them missing a couple of games, a game here or two each. If any one of them plays 16 games, I won't even say 17 because 17, you could always end up people sit week 18. But wouldn't you say right now, what are the odds that two of them play 16 games? I don't know that I'd feel great about that at this point.
No.
Well, that group of three.
Would you be shocked at all if you woke up one day and either you looked at Twitter or someone forwarded you a tweet that Julio Jones has been traded to the Rams or the Seattle Seahawks?
No, or the Colts. That wouldn't shock me.
But I mean, I'm specifically talking those two teams for the Niners, right? If the Colts, who cares?
I get what you're saying.
I'm saying if you're the Niners, like those two teams are just going to be in the mix. They just will be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they will be. They will be.
Perfect. I mean, they 100% will be. Because
I would say
the Rams have no issue.
I'd put the Rams ahead of Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, they paid Lockett and they have DK, but still, like, you give those three guys, you had him to go with those two?
No.
Holy moly.
Right.
Even if you put Julio with Kupp and Robert Woods, that's Cam Akers and Matt Stafford, that offense is pretty sweet.
Do you? One thing I wonder if you're Julio.
Because to me, if you're the Niners, he goes to the Colts, you don't even care. Like, that's fine. Doesn't really impact you. I mean, technically play them, but you know what I'm saying.
No. It's
he gets traded in your division, it's a problem.
For sure. Especially because you're still trying to figure out your secondary, and those teams are multifaceted in their passing games in terms of the players that really.
I'd include the Cardinals as well.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine?
Now, granted, it was just a fan that asked
DeAndre Hopkins follows through on his agreement from the treadmill. Here's another question, and my guess is no, because there's no indication that he would be at this point. Trent Williams made it a priority to be on the 49ers. Julio has played for Kyle Shanahan before. To me, if Julio is willing to play this year before he gets paid, then he would have an interest in making sure that he likes where he's going, and he would like playing for Kyle. Now, that said, he would also like playing for Matthew Stafford and the Rams. He would also like playing with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. He would also like playing with the Colts. So I don't
could always retrade at the end of the year.
Yeah, you could.
A little baseball style.
You could. But if he was just if he has the value, then don't you keep him?
I mean, there would be pressure on them to keep him, yeah. But there's the finances that play a part.
You would easily argue, the time to do this sort of stuff is when your quarterback is making $6 million. So if Trey Lance is clearly your starting quarterback, then the time to do it, we've seen it with Josh Allen. I've talked about it. You've seen it with Mahomes. Josh Allen's the 10th highest paid guy in the Bills right now. Like, that is almost over for them.
Here's what I do know. I don't know how this year's going to shake out. Clearly, the moment Mac Jones went to the Patriots, Jimmy was going to be here. 1,000,000%. I would bet $10,000 right now. Trey Lance, I mean, obviously health permitting, Trey Lance is the starting quarterback in 2022, right? He ain't sitting for 2 years. I don't give a shit if you win the Super Bowl. Trey Lance is starting next year. Like, they just traded. I mean,
yeah, I think you have to assume that.
Yeah. So, but I'm not assuming. Like, I would put. I think it's like a fact. Like,
it can't. I mean, what? By definition, it can't be a fact. But yes, I think you have to expect that that's the case.
So the easiest way for him, like, with the most weapons possible,
while he's cheap. To me, it's more about just like how are you going to take advantage of the fact that he's cheap. But I do think there's other areas. Like, this is where I go back to.
You can load up on
manufacturing
defense,
production. Yeah, manufacturing production in the pass game is not Kyle Shanahan's primary problem. He can do that.
Yeah.
But your team's not worse if Julio Jones is on it. That I believe pretty strongly.
No, I'm never opposed to taking big swings. There is risk here. But sometimes I think we talk too much when it comes to football on the risk. Like, who gives a shit? I think the Rams have kind of set the tone. The problem here is your quarterback position is still a major. You got to figure some things out. Like, the Rams have done it. Like, Jared has been a functioning quarterback, and now they've upgraded with Matt Stafford. Like, the Niners, like, let's just see what their quarterback situation is.
Yeah. Yeah, but you would argue, I know who it's going to be between, and this guy can help both of them.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, they just have some other things to figure out here.